All right, let's jump right in. The mechanics of the Nigerian electoral process are literally as intricate as they are crucial to the nation's democracy. In this explainer, we're going to demystify exactly how a presidential runoff works under the 1999 Constitution and the 2022 Electoral Act. It's a fascinating mechanism that forces politicians to look way beyond their local strongholds, and getting a grip on this is absolutely essential for understanding how leadership is ultimately decided in Africa's most populous nation. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 5 main sections: defining the runoff, first-round failure conditions, selecting the candidates, resolving a tie, and finally, the final showdown.
Section 1. Defining the runoff. Let's start right at the basics by establishing exactly what we mean when we throw around this specific electoral term.
So a runoff is essentially the Constitution's giant reset button. Think of it as a backup voting system deployed to elect a single winner when the very first round fails to produce an outright victor. You know, instead of just settling for a fragmented result where a leader might govern with, say, a tiny fraction of public support, the system forces a second round. This moves the whole country into a much narrower, highly regulated field of play. It shifts the entire political landscape from a huge, chaotic battle among many parties to a very stark, binary choice.
Moving on to Section 2, First-Round Failure Conditions. Let's look at what it actually takes to win that initial round and why it so often falls short. To win the presidency right out of the gate, raw popularity just isn't enough. A candidate absolutely needs to secure the highest number of overall votes, plus capture at least 25% of the votes cast in 24 out of Nigeria's 36 states. Now, when you're looking at a super crowded field of 15 or 18 registered candidates, meeting both of those strict mandates simultaneously is incredibly difficult. Votes just get fractured. A candidate might totally dominate in the North, for example, but fail to hit that 25% threshold in enough southern states, or vice versa. And boom, the election is locked in a total stalemate. And the underlying philosophy here is just profound. The framers of the Constitution designed these exact rules to demand genuine national acceptance. By treating the entire country as one single constituency, the law deliberately stops any candidate from winning purely on massive concentrated popularity in just one specific geographic or demographic region. It's a really calculated structural requirement to make sure whoever takes the highest office has proven a solid baseline of support across the incredibly diverse tapestry of the nation.
Which brings us to Section 3, selecting the candidates. Assuming nobody hits that exceptionally high threshold, the Independent National Electoral Commission, or INEC, steps in to organize the runoff. So how do they figure out who actually moves forward?
The answer is exactly 2. No matter how many political parties campaigned or how many candidates debated and ran initially, the field gets completely cleared out. Strictly 2 candidates are making it onto that runoff ballot. Every single other contender is entirely eliminated from the race. Obviously, this radically alters the political calculus overnight, forcing massive alliances among all those remaining factions. Figuring out who gets that very first spot is highly intuitive. Candidate 1 is simply the person who secured the highest overall number of votes in the first round. Right? It just goes straight to the winner of the raw popular vote, rewarding whoever managed to turn out the single largest block of voters nationwide. But here is where things get really interesting. Who gets the second spot on the ballot? This is where the plot twists, because selecting the second contender is not nearly as straightforward as you might think. You can't just slide down the list and pick whoever got the second most total votes.
Yeah, you'd naturally expect the runner-up in total votes to automatically get that second spot. But in reality, the second candidate is the one among all the remaining contenders who secured a majority of votes in the highest number of states. This creates a really fascinating strategic scenario. The second-place popular vote winner could actually be completely eliminated from the race if a third or even fourth-place candidate showed a wider geographic spread of outright majorities across more states. Once again, this rule severely punishes politicians who only appeal to isolated, densely populated strongholds and heavily rewards those who build really broad, cross-regional coalitions.
All right, Section 4, resolving a tie. Because these electoral laws function as a meticulous series of if-then scenarios, we really have to consider the edge cases.
So, what on earth happens if there is a tie between candidates who won majorities in the exact same number of states? Just imagine a scenario where 2 remaining contenders each won a majority in exactly 5 states. If we hit this kind of edge case, and multiple candidates are geographically deadlocked, INEC has a very specific constitutional tiebreaker ready to go.
Under this tiebreaker rule, INEC reviews only those specific tied candidates.
From that narrower pool, they select the one with the highest number of total overall votes to be candidate 2. Notice how pure vote volume only becomes the deciding factor for this second spot as an absolute last resort. It only kicks in if, and only if, there is a complete deadlock in their state-by-state geographic spread. It's a brilliant failsafe, honestly, because it ensures a definitive second candidate is chosen without ever violating that core philosophy of national acceptance.
And finally, Section 5, the final showdown. Now that our two highly vetted candidates are firmly locked into the ballot, the Constitution puts INEC on a seriously tight clock to execute the vote.
The timeline here is incredibly aggressive. INEC has exactly 21 days from the declaration of the failed first round to organize and execute a massive nationwide runoff. I mean, just think about the sheer logistics involved there. They have to manage printing, securing, and distributing millions of ballots across 36 geographically diverse states, all within a 3-week window. This massive logistical hurdle is exactly why the Commission simply cannot afford to take chances. They actually proactively print extra runoff ballots well in advance of the very first election, just in case this tight constitutional trigger is pulled.
But once voting day actually arrives, everything simplifies. After all the really complex math, the stringent 25% thresholds, and the intricate geographic spread requirements of the first round, the runoff strips it all completely away down to a simple majority rule. The winner is simply whoever secures the highest number of overall votes between the final two candidates. The heavy structural engineering was already done during the selection process. Now it just comes down to a straightforward head-to-head mandate from the people.
So, now that you understand these mechanics, how does the strict constitutional demand for national acceptance change the way you view the power and strategy of a single vote? I really hope this explainer has clarified the fascinating logic behind Nigeria's electoral laws, leaving you to ponder how these deliberate, intricate rules shape the very foundation of representation. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.